1 year ago, I switched from doing Komodo Kamado content to Kamado Joe content. And since then, you guys have repeatedly asked me, can you do a comparison between the two? And I have repeatedly said it's not a fair comparison. Today, I'm gonna show you why. Let's get into it. What's up, barbecue fans? My name is Jake, and today we're talking about the differences between a Komodo Kamado and a Kamado Joe. Now, let's get one thing out in the open to start with. We're talking about a mass-produced consumer product and a luxury handmade product, okay? Very different products. Now, this is the 32. I'll uncover it in a little bit here. Komodo Kamado also has a 23 that's in line with this size of the Big Joe, but they actually outsell the 32 3-to-1, just to give you an idea. But when we're talking about the differences, whether you have a 23, a 16, a 42, the similarities are the same across the models, and when we're talking about these differences, it's going to be aligned regardless of size, okay? But to give you a point of reference, this is a Series 3, this is worth $3 today. The 23 in Komodo Kamado is like 46. Now you're gonna buy probably some side tables and a couple things, so it's probably gonna be another $1,000 or something in there, right? So we've got $3 versus roughly 55 and more if you go to the 32, right? So I wanna get that out of the way. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, it's an apples to oranges comparison, but I'm gonna show you why this is more expensive and some of the differences between the two. First off, we're gonna talk about the cover. Now, if you guys followed me on my Offset Rookie channel when I was running that, my biggest knock, and I hit workhorse on it repeatedly, is the fact that I spent $240 on a cover and it was gray within like 4 or 5 months. This cover is made with Sunbrella and it is still as black as the day I bought it. This one is very, very faded. You can see in this camera over here, right? You can tell the differences in color, and it's not sun. They're both in the same amount of sun, right? And as you get down lower, it even gets lighter. Additionally, these stripes are supposed to be red, and they are now white. The kicker here is that this is my second cover in a year. This one's only like 4 months old, right? And I can tell you that this stitching here is just gonna fail, and then these red stripes are gonna fall off here in the next 2 months. But, you know, just from a color perspective, you know, the cover is just supposed to protect your grills. But me personally, if I buy a black cover, I want it to stay black. I don't want, that looks like an eyesore on the patio. Now, that may not bother everyone. I'm a little bit anal, I'll admit it, but I'm just showing you out of the gate the differences here in one of my pet peeves. Let me take the covers off these and put the side tables on the Komodo Kamado, and then we'll get into some of the other differences. So, first things first, I'm running out of room quickly here. I had to tilt these guys in so that you could see them, right? I wanted to get a table on each so that you could see that. On the Komodo Kamado, these tables, or side tables, they hang on the side, okay? There's a 3 or 4 stainless hook that it goes into, and then when you want to put them on, you lift them up and you put them here. They have 2 options, teak or teak with a stainless steel insert, okay? There's 3 or 4 stainless steel on that insert, and it's flush mount. Now, the Kamado Joe and the Series 3, they upgraded to aluminum. So for those of you who don't know, I had a Series 2 for 3 years before I bought my Komodo Kamado, and sold my old Big Joe to my buddy. He still uses it today. And this is a Series 3, and they've got the aluminum side tables, which is a big upgrade. Really happy that they did that with those, but those just flip up. These hang off to the side. I can't get them all on right now because I just don't have enough room. Now, as far as a Kamado in general, it doesn't matter what kind you have. There's a whole bunch of different brands out there. The market's been flooded with competitors today, but ultimately you have a top vent that lets in air, right? You adjust your airflow here, and then we have a bottom vent, and more air, more hot, right? Super easy. Same thing with the Komodo Kamado. I mean, we have an adjustable, this side we've got 2 vents, one that's got the ability to really fine tune it, and then a larger vent. And then we've got, instead of a dial, we just have a vent that has coarse threads on it and rotates it up. So the adjustment is super easy on this. You know, on the Komodo Kamado, a 1/8 of a turn goes a long way. The same way where a little bit of a turn here adjusts your temperatures, right? So they work the same way. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start from the top and we're gonna work our way down. So let's start with the Komodo Joe top vent. Now, the way this works here is if you have 1 inch on the bottom, this is about, maybe that's about 225, and if we go all the way open, it's about 400 to 450, depending on how much lump you're running. So you've got a fair amount of adjustment. Once you got to go past like 400, then you can start to open this up, okay? And then if you're making high temp pizzas or something like that, or you're trying to do super high temperature sear on your steak or whatever, you're gonna open this up, and you might open up the top vent or the bottom vent as well to maximize all that heat energy coming up so you can get a nice crust on your steaks. So here's some of the challenges here, right? You can see that I'm holding the bottom because I can't adjust my vent right now because it's all gummed up, right? Now this is a huge improvement of the Series 1 that had the daisy wheel on top, because we have this dome over here that helps protect it from rain getting inside. But what happens is that it just gets all gummed up, right? You can see the inside of this one, just all gummed up. Now you can take some Simply Green or maybe some ZEP 505, you guys know I love that stuff, or some, Dawn Power Spray or whatever, and just soak this and let it sit overnight, give it a scrub, and this problem goes away. But you know, it does get gummed up. I've cleaned it once in the last year. Now I put out a lot of videos, but you know, we're gummed up again. The other issue here is that if I want something like that and I open it, what happens? Gravity. Gravity gets us all, right? Right now it's getting my belly, so I'm back on my Peloton. But on this guy, you know, it does move around a little bit. Now, this, when you first put it on, is pretty tight. I have a new gasket inside. I haven't put it on. I think if I put a new one on there, it will tighten this up a little bit. But, you know, this is just something that does happen with them. It's just part of this vent design. And the other thing is that there is an Allen key here, right? Like I could tighten that up a little bit to try and get that to hold, but even if it held, gravity's still gonna twist the base. Your final challenge here is that over time, the paint's just gonna flake off. You're gonna lose your, you know, you've got 4 lines here. It doesn't hurt the functionality, and by the time that happens, you probably know your vent settings pretty darn well, but just something to be aware of. Now, if we look at the Komodo Kamado vent, all we do is we turn. It's got a pretty coarse thread on it, right? If I go around it a bunch, I can get a pretty thick gap here. You're almost never gonna go this high, right? The way that the airflow works on this guy, air flows very, very quickly through it. So it's not, you don't really have to go this high. You can get some pretty high temps, even 4 turns open, but you've got lots to play with there. But what happens here is that, we'll close this up here. All right, we're closed. 1/8 of a turn goes a very, very long way. And you can really, really dial in even a degree of difference on your temperatures, right? So you've got a lot of adjustability. If we open this guy up and we close it, it doesn't move, right? It's balanced in there. It's just a round dome. There's no reason for it to move just because of gravity. So as you open and close, your vent settings never change. You will get a little bit of buildup of soot here and on this stainless steel band. But again, this actually sat dirty for the last year. It had all the soot on here. I took some ZEP 505 and a microfiber rag, and it doesn't stick to these tiles. In 30 seconds, I had this clean again. You can see it, there's a little bit there. If I had spent 5 minutes on this, this thing would have been perfectly shiny, but for 30 seconds, it looks pretty darn good. But there's your biggest differences in the vent. The one thing I'll tell you, and I've never had to do it after 3 years of cooking, but there is a gasket here. It's like a rope type gasket. You can screw that out all the way and replace that gasket if you had to. In fact, when you buy one, it comes with that gasket because you get a whole spare parts box that comes with one of these guys. Speaking of gaskets, let's talk about them. So one change or improvement that Komodo Joe made in Series 2 is they added like an oven type gasket. You would see them around your oven. I think it's fiberglass. I'm honestly not 100% sure what the outside of it is. Maybe it's all fiberglass. Don't ask a tech guy technical details because I don't know what it is. If it's a computer, I could help you out, but it's just like your oven, right? And this is a huge improvement over a lot of the other competitors out there that have a felt gasket. Felt doesn't last as long, and it sure as heck does not like the high temperatures. But the challenge here, and you can probably see up here, is that there is a little bit of red high temp silicone hanging out the side here. Why is that? Is because I just fixed this guy. I pushed the limits in the last year. I was doing some super high temp cooks, and I was trying to get close to my wood-fired oven and kind of push the boundaries of the Komodo Joe, raise the pizza up in the dome, and I turned out some pretty darn good pizza, I'll tell you what. But those high temperatures break down the silicone, and all of a sudden you open it up and your gasket's hanging. Now the good thing about it is that it just takes some high temp silicone, usually it's red, and you just put a bead up there and you take a piece of painter's tape and you just tape it back up. You close it up, you let it sit for 24 hours, and you're as good as new, all right? Not a huge deal, but I want you to be aware of that is one thing that you have to deal with on a Komodo Joe when it comes to high temp cooking. Now, if you're not doing a lot of high temp cooking, you're not gonna have to worry about this. And to be honest, the one thing I'll tell you, my go-to pizza on a Kamado style grill is 450 to 500 for a traditional pie, 8 to 9 minutes, and it's absolutely delicious, right? They make an okay Neapolitan style pizza, but not as good as a wood-fired oven. So if you get the Dojo for this guy, that does improve that, but I think that the traditional pie at 450, 500, 8 to 9 minutes is absolutely phenomenal. I used to joke that I'm gonna make you a pizza that's gonna require a glass of fine red wine, and I started it on my Big Joe Series 2. Now, let me bring you in and we'll look at the gasket on the Komodo Kamado. Now this gasket here, it comes in a roll and you cut the back piece of it, and I have a little video where I put it together. There is a new one piece, and I'm not sure if it looks exactly the same, but all the new models come with a one piece gasket. It may look the same, but I just wanted to point that out in case you see one and it doesn't look the same. But really, we've got a gasket here up top. This is not gonna come across on camera properly, but there's no gasket up here. There is a curved line, so the gasket seals on this beveled edge. So you get an airtight seal every single time. So while we're down here, I'll show you one thing that you should know about a Komodo Kamado. Here's your latch. It's very hard to get an angle shot of this. But there is, when you close this, there's this part here where we've got room to breathe, right? This is kind of a storage mode. What it does is it allows some venting when it's not in use, and it just takes the pressure off the gasket. When you use this, you push one more time all the way in, and you get a firm lock, and you know that we're 100% sealed. So let's move inside. First, we're gonna talk about the cooking area in general. So I'll bring you in close, but just to give you an idea, the Komodo Joe has one set of grates stock. You can buy a grill expander that'll go on top and give you another level here. But these guys, this is on the top level, they have 3 levels that they'll go, right? One's here, and one's directly over the coals, which I pretty much never use, but it is an option. Most times you're gonna put the deflector shields there, and you're gonna focus on 2 cooking areas. A third, if you get the grill expander, and I can tell you that James at Smoking Dad Barbecue just put out a video, I don't know if it's out, but I saw it on Instagram, a teaser for it, and he was able to do 6 butts with that grill expander, right? So that gives you an idea. On the Komodo Kamado, we have a set of grates here, we have a set of grates here, and it comes with a top expander grate that you can just lift out of the way as you need, okay? I typically don't use this a lot. It's more it's more for pizza, right? Like I've got the pizza stone here. Pizza stone just sits up there. It's the same shape as the top grate there. But you have 3 levels of cooking. I mean, I can probably get on the 32 4 butts up here and probably 6 butts on the middle level. Now remember, this guy's been sitting here for a year, so it's a little dirty. Bear with me, I have not used it yet. So first thing here with the Komodo Kamado, this is the basket expander. This is an optional accessory, but highly recommended. But what it does, and look, this thing is really, really dirty. Again, it's been sitting for a year and I haven't cleaned it up yet. So it normally slides quite freely, but right now, because it's gummed up, it's not. But what happens here is I have a plate. Put a plate in here, now I can use a quarter basket. If I want to do a half basket, I can do that. And just for reference here, if I slid that open and I filled that with lump, it's about 4 pounds of lump. I can smoke a brisket easily on that. So it doesn't really take a lot of lump for this guy. This guy has got a lot of thermal mass and it holds temperatures very, very well. When I'm going to do a reverse sear, I will always go to half basket. And the reason for that is because I can do that low, slow reverse sear. But if I got a couple steaks and I want to dial it up, 4 pounds of lump just isn't quite enough to give me the temperatures for very long. So I always go to half basket. You can also just pull this whole thing out, and there's our actual Firebasket. So you probably are never going to use this unless you're doing pizza, right? So I put that in there, and I rarely go more than a half basket of lump. And this basket is removable, and now you can get in here and vacuum up all your ash, right? The one thing that I'll tell you right out of the gate here is that this guy, I can cook for months without having to clean it. On the Komodo Joe, I've got to clean it every single time. That's a huge compartment down there. Now, you don't want to let it get super filled up because you're going to affect your airflow a little bit, but you know, you can go a bunch of cooks without having to clean it every time, and then you can just take it out and you can vacuum it. You can also vacuum it from the front, but this just makes it easier. And real quick while I'm here, these 2 pieces for your Firebox, the Firebox is only 2 pieces. This is not in here when you get it. When you assemble it for the first time, you put that in there. You never take this out again, right? Because one of the things that's unique about the Komodo Kamado is it actually expands and contracts with heat, right? You can see these lines here. These are expansion lines, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment here, but you never take this out, okay? Put this guy back in here. Okay. One other little comment here is that this comes with heat deflectors. I've never ever used them. They're clean, right? Because I can smoke with a quarter Firebox, there's absolutely no reason to use them. The meat is so far away from them, you don't ever need to really use them. Put in this one, you might be able to get 4 butts on the bottom or 5 butts on the bottom and then 6 up top. The top is definitely a little bit bigger. The other thing we hear is we've got these grates that open, right? So if I've got both these grates in, I may have the bottom one open. If I ever want to add some more wood or some more charcoal, I can do it without taking it apart, right? And I'll just close this up. The other thing we have here is inside I've got the half grate. So what I'll do is now it is an accessory you have to buy. But what I'll do here is I'll keep this bottom grate in and I'll put my half grate in, reverse sear here, true hot and cold zone. Let me show you the Komodo Joe setup. Comes with these tongs so you can adjust your height, right? So you've got 2 half grates. So you can do adjustable zones like so. So I can get a cool zone, and I can also go down a little further to get right over the grates, right? So now I can put this guy in. And I can get kind of a hot and cool zone if I keep my lump over there, right? There is a basket divider that comes with it as well, so you can just put lump on it that side. But you've got some adjustability, and again, if you got the grill expander, you could go all the way up top and add one more layer for smoking. Obviously, I've got a bunch of lump in here right now, but there's a basket there, okay? I'm gonna pull this out real quick, show you the Firebox. Obviously, it's a little dirty. And if you were cleaning this is how you would clean it. You take it out and you would either vacuum this all out, or you open the bottom drawer and just pull that out. And since we're here, we'll dump this out real quick. So now you can see our Firebox here. I'll just clean this off a little bit. There's a piece in here that helps direct the ash down to the center. I also just bought the Kick Ash basket, and the basket sits on this lip, and then you don't have any worry about ash getting down there. It's aftermarket, but I think it's well worth it. The one challenge here, and it's a good design from the sense that lots of Kamados have problems with the Firebasket cracking. What Kamado Joe has done is they've built a multi-piece basket. So each of these is a piece, so there's 6 pieces to it, okay? It's held on with this ring. It's a little bit of a challenge to deal with. I pulled out my basket a couple videos ago and I pulled off the ring at the same time, and I had to re-put this together. And I'm noticing that I actually put it together wrong because I've got my hole right in the front. You should probably rotate that around ideally, but that's off topic. But this, if you pull this ring off, or when you initially assemble it, the easiest way is to put some paper towel around the outside to hold up that, and then you just put the ring on. But it is a little bit of a pain. If you're not careful when you pull out your Firebox, you're gonna rip that off, and you're gonna be fixing that. Speaking of heat deflectors, I'll show you how they work here. The most common is to put them, there we go. The most common here is to put your star accessory there, and one in there for a hot and cold zone, or both in there. And now you can use this whole surface to smoke some meat on. So one other thing I want to talk about is the rotisserie accessory. Both of these can do rotisserie, but there's some big differences between them. So I'll pull some shots from some videos where I've used the Jotisserie, but what it is it's a piece of metal here that goes, and it's sloped. So what happens here is it will still close about like that, and it does seal. Now, some of the challenges there is actually the last time I used this, I put a weight on here to hold it closed, but you've got to get it perfectly aligned to seal that up. But it does work, and it's an amazing accessory. But what happens there is the spit sits in the middle, and same thing with the Dojo, but you close it up like this. I think the Dojo's a little higher. And then you can get pizzas in and out of it. And with the rotisserie, your spit goes there, and the motor goes on this side, and you've got rotisserie. And let me tell you, rotisserie on a Kamado is amazing, right? If you get a new Kamado, regardless of what brand it is, get yourself that rotisserie accessory, because it is amazing chicken. Some of the best chicken you'll ever have. On the Komodo Kamado, they tackled this differently. There's actually a spring-loaded, this end here is set, and we've got a spit here, and on this side, we've got a spring-loaded drive in there. So the spit goes right inside, and the motor hangs on the outside, and we fully close this. So we control our airflow exactly the same. On this guy, your airflow it's going to change a little bit, and it's more difficult to hold temperatures or adjust temperatures on this. You can do it, don't get me wrong, but this works the exact same way because it's 100% sealed, and our chicken is sitting right inside of it on that spit. So one of the things I talk about when it comes to Kamado cookers is pizza. And if you ever get one of these things, pizza will become your new best friend. The reason why is that these things make amazing pizza. So much so that you will never order it out again unless you're in a pinch. But honestly, I think you'd probably spend the time to make it because it is so much better. take the time to learn to make your own dough. It's not that hard. There's a million videos out there on it. I highly recommend that you try that. If you don't have that kind of patience, get some. No, just kidding. Don't buy the crap in the grocery store. Go to your favorite pizza joint. Don't go to a chain. Go to a pizza joint, a good pizza joint. Ask them to buy their dough. They'll probably sell it to you for $5. Pick up 4 or 5, bring them home, freeze them, whatever you want. But you can then make some high quality pizza at home. Now, one of the things I did a few months ago is I tried a pizza experiment on the Kamado Joe, where I got out my slow roller, just the ring. We haven't talked about the slow roller, I'll talk about that in a second. But what I did is I put that in there, then I put my divide and conquer up top, which raised our rates up here. I'll give you a picture of it. And then I built a air gap, and then we had our pizza up higher in the dome. The reason for that is I was trying to get more like a pizza oven, where you get that pepperoni curling up, so you get those cups, and you get a nice finish on the top of the pizza. Where I got that from is this guy right here. As you can see, it's already got the pizza stone raised, and you're up in the dome, and it cooks some amazing pizza, right? So I was trying to mimic that, and I had some great success. However, you might have noticed I have not used the slow roller since. The reason for that is that a year ago, when I got this guy, stamped on top of the slow roller top plate is 500 degrees. Recently, or actually shortly after that video, geez, I think Smokin' Dad's video came out like 2 days before my video came out, and he showed that they had changed the heat rating from 500 to 300 degrees. And of course, I went over 500, and they tell you not to go over 500, but I was not thinking it was that big a deal. I thought it might warp or something like that, but because I didn't have that top plate in there, I wasn't too worried about it. Well, they tell you not to use it if you exceed the temperature. So to me, there's a reason why they're telling you not to use it after you exceed that temperature. And if they've lowered it, they've obviously had some problems with it at 500 degrees. So I don't know the reason why they lowered it. I don't know what it's made up or why they don't want it going too hot. But to me, it's something to do with the food that's going in your mouth, and I don't know what it is. All right, so I'm not gonna speculate. I'm just telling you the facts. They dropped it from 500 to 300, and I don't know why. But because I exceeded that in this video, I have not used it again, and I don't need to use it, right? For me personally, I have a ton of experience without that thing and just using the heat deflectors, and I've turned out some amazing food. Now the slow roller, if you use it like 225, 250, is supposed to add like 20 times more smoke. So there is some benefits there, but I'll tell you what, once you get good at one of these things, you can do it with or without that. So I know by now this video is getting pretty long. If you stuck around so far, thank you very much. If you like learning about backyard barbecue, hit that subscribe button down below. If you like rum and coke, or rum and cook, follow rum and cook, as we have a cheers here. I always get that coke and cook mixed up now. But anyhow, I've got 3 main things to talk about. Then we're gonna wrap this up. First and foremost, when we looked at the basket on the KJ, you saw that it was an open wired mesh. What happens there is the air comes in, and then it kind of moves around the lump. Now, when the basket is full, it does go through the lump a little bit, but as that basket shrinks, it goes around the lump. This guy, you saw the plate that was in there, and what happens is that on the other side of those dials is a plate that pushes it down, and the air comes up through the lump. And what happens there is that makes your temperatures super, super locked in. Now, as you get experience with a Kamado Joe, you can get your temperatures dialed in pretty good. I mean, you guys know that I did a review of the Connected Joe. They've added some electronics to try and help stabilize the temperatures more and just make it easier to use. They really did that because some people get intimidated by a live lump, and that's to help them jump over that hump and get into this market, right? The reality is that I don't think that you need that. You don't need a barbecue guru. Now, I have used one on long brisket cooks on my Kamado Joe, but if you really spend your time and build your fire properly, you can get this pretty darn stable. The one thing that I noticed right away when I moved over to the KK is that to lock it in and hold the temperature for 12, 14 hours was super, super easy because all the air flows through the lump continuously, and because it's completely airtight, it locks in, and the temperatures just are rock solid. It is so easy to dial this in. This one's pretty easy to dial in too, but this one definitely has an advantage. The next piece is just thermal mass, right? What's so great about a Kamado style cooker? Our materials around the outside heat up, especially our dome, and what happens is our meat's sitting on that top rack, and that heat fires into your meat, so you get 360-degree cooking. It turns out amazing food. Super juicy. Chicken, like you have chicken on this and it'll be like you've never had chicken before. It is so friggin' good. This guy weighs 372 pounds. This guy weighs 950 pounds. 3 times thicker, almost 4 times thicker than this guy. So this guy holds heat insanely well. The other thing here is that if you're cranking at like 500-600 degrees on here, like you can't touch this. This gets hot as shit. You will burn yourself. This guy gets warm, but nothing like this because it's so thick. This is made of refractory cement, and there's also an insulation layer between it that just helps it hold heat amazingly. But as you can see, even though this lid I think weighs 250 pounds or something like that, this one is easy to open because of the spring. This one is easy to open for a spring. This one's just got a bigger spring, a much bigger spring. But it totally works, and it'll sit however you want. Although when you lift this guy up, you're gonna feel that, you know, this is definitely a little bit more heftier. But we've got some thermal mass here. There is a big difference in that, and it does affect the cooking. When I was doing my research between upgrading from my Kamado Joe to this guy, I read in their forums about, you know, people that had come from Big Green Egg and KJ, and they're like, oh, the food tastes even better. And I was like, oh, this is BS. And I really, like, I kind of put that aside and I didn't really think anything of it. And then when I got this guy, there is a small percentage improvement. The pizza is definitely better. But even like chicken and pulled pork, it's got more moisture into it because of that thermal mass and because it's airtight, and there's less airflow there. And when you're smoking like low and slow meats or chicken or something like that, I mean, it's delicious. So they both turn out amazing food, but the KK does have the advantage there. Last thing I'll tell you, made in China. This guy is handmade in Indonesia. Now I talked about consumer mass produced versus handmade. These guys are made in Indonesia. These tiles here, right? These are hand placed. There's over 4,000 tiles on the 32, and there's a special grout on here. This is a NASA grade material, and I told you that the KJ expands and contracts with heat. What happens is this grout heats up and it allows it to expand and doesn't crack or anything. It just expands and it contracts with the heat, and you can see that it's an amazing. The other thing that adds up to the weight is that there's 125 pounds of stainless steel alone in this guy. All the grates are stainless steel, 304. You can see stainless steel accents here. This plate and this latch and everything, the air mechanism, the side table holders, everything is stainless steel, including the rotisserie setup, right? So high quality, expensive stuff goes into making this. This is one of the reasons why it's so expensive. These are made in Indonesia. Now they are kiln dried. So what happens, there's some adhesive that holds this all together. They stick them in a kiln and they dry them, and then they go on the water for a couple months. They're shipped into Las Vegas, and then they ship them worldwide from there. They typically have them in stock. You can go on their website and they've got different ones. They have a tile one, and then they have a pebble one, completely different looks, but everyone has their own personal preference. And then colors, there's a whole ton of different colors. So one novel of a video later, I hope that I've given you some reasons of why they are so different and some of the advantages to this one. Look, it's not cheap, right? Neither is this. But here's the one thing. Both of these are gonna last a very, very, very long time, right? So buy ones, acquire ones. It's what I say about everything. It's why I went and I bought a workhorse pit. It's why I have an Alpha oven. It's why I've got a Yoder and a Lynx professional grill, right? All of these grills and smokers are very expensive, but you know what? I won't be buying any more. I won't need to. As long as I take care of these, my workhorse is definitely a little rusty. I've been setting that up because I was going to do a video on it and I just have not gotten around to cleaning it up. But I can spend 2 hours on this and have it looking like new. Other than that, I like them covered and I like my covers to stay the color that I bought them at. And I am actually announcing some changes to the channel. That video came out before this one, but if you want to know more, check this video out right here. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you soon.